Make sure that we get to the point here. Right. All smells that come from people who are pouring in them come from smells of where they've urinated on people. Let me turn this light off here. Here's the tent right here. Pretty good. Hope they can save some energy there. I got it. All problems in the black community come from them fighting that particular group of people. They willingly accept this mind control thing without any disregard, as long as they're practicing sexual proclivities, or someone's awarding them for sexual behaviors. So fits perfectly into the culture. Now, after them, someone not awarding them for sexual behaviors, then definitely they will have an uprising. So that kind of again goes against that particular other culture that we're discussing, where it's about my food and my animals, where it's about your property and your property line and your dignity and your honor, your self-respect. But here we go right here. So all day, we're going to run through the names. We're going to run through the significance of the names. If we can get this online. Our primary route of communication or upload to the internet has now been destroyed. The COM trend box that allows for the communication, a surge was sent through it, and the surge that was sent through it caused an electronic surge, and it blew out probably the very front part of the box. Now, if I can find another box, I can repair it. But unfortunately, I'm not able to find another box in this area. So at some point in time, I might have to do a little secret squirrel operation and find a way to properly repair this box. You know what I'm saying? So, but this is what's going on. This is the primary objective here. We want to be careful here with our own movements, because we could be doing some of this stuff ourselves. We do know that this was highly discussed at that point in time, that we will be using this individual's body has been discussed throughout classes I've been in through schools. We're just going to use your body to do damage to you. But after finding ways to ground yourself out, getting on the ground, knowing what the mechanism is, that it's electricity, after finding ways to circumvent this, then they have to go with other people. So since they have to go with other people at that point in time, you can really identify who they're working for. Hopefully we can identify the main comptroller or the main operator in this particular evolution. If not, then if these videos do make it online, I'm not sure. If these videos do make it online, got a little wet here. If these videos do make it online, we will have the opportunity to possibly point out to who these people are. Because once these people are found out, they can have several defenses. That's not true. It's one defense, a lie, just simply a lie. A lie is simply probably the first defense that they're going to go with. It wasn't me, and I wasn't there. I was in this place at that point in time, or I was here at this point in time, or between those points in times, you know. So, you know, I don't remember what happened, or it wasn't me. I don't remember what happened. I was flashing. We've heard that one a lot since here recently. And here recently I've been around a lot of different drug affiliated people, and that's one they've said a lot. I was just flashing. I don't know what happened. I was flashing out, man, and I woke up and I knocked this guy out. You know, they don't mind taking responsibility for it, so let's give them sole responsibility. They don't mind taking sole responsibility for it, so let's give them sole responsibility. So here we have the idea that the black criminal organization controls the black world. We don't know if that's weed anymore. We're gonna say that that's piss. Hope you can see that. We're gonna say that they peed in the tent too. We're gonna say that they peed in the tent also because it was a little yellowish in there. So we're gonna definitely say that an alcoholic beer drinker came up there and peed in the tent too. Or maybe a woman squatted and peed in the tent because when we pulled out the water, it was a little yellowish. So we definitely know that rainwater is not yellow, and we definitely know that the bottom of the thing is gray. We definitely know that there was no sand in the tent, so we're gonna definitely say they peed in the tent also. So now, unless they're talking about sexual rewards, and now if you stop giving them sexual rewards, we come to the conclusion that there might be an uprising. But as long as they're participating in sexual activities, it tends to be a pretty good, good thing to deal, good deal to go. So I have a small frog in my lower back where I've been punched at several times by myself, by people passing by the human to human, brain to brain communication that's being used as a form of political gerrymandering. But that's what's going on. Now, we don't want to be harsh and rash or hash and move to a very defensive position as of yet. But we want to be very aware that in this point in time, the mechanism is so advanced that even the snakes and animals that move throughout the areas can perceive them. So recently someone just ran through the bushes here and popped me and hit me. All right. They ran through the bushes. You heard the bushes moving? Because it's hard to stop bushes from moving. It's so many small things in grass and bushes to stop them from moving. But recently they ran through the bushes. They wouldn't have ran through the bushes if they thought at any point in time a snake or anything had been there. So there's a lot of communication going on here. It's a lot of aerial research. There's a lot of different things going on where they're attempting to win a battle. But unfortunately, a battle cannot be won unless there's an opponent. If there's not an opponent and I'm attempting to win a battle, then I'm attempting to fight something that cannot be defined. This, in essence, is not a battle. A battle is when there is an opponent. A war is an opponent. For things to be qualified as war, battles, or identity, simply identity, there has to be an opponent. And since these particular people cannot participate in warfare with an opponent in this particular part of the human evolution, they're left to participate in a form of warfare without an opponent. Meaning there's people that oppose them. There's people who that challenge them. But when it comes down to being opposed and challenged, they're not fighting a war of physicality, but a war of religious information. A war where their tactics are not based off human tactics, but where their tactics are based off the perceptions of spirits and jinns from different cultures. And as a result, unless you choose to fight that war that way also, you are not able to fight them back. So when it comes down to these people going to churches and mosques and different religious organizations and they're talking about spiritual warfare, this is not a spiritual warfare. This is an individual taking the knowledge and information gathered over thousands of years about the perceptions of spirits, jinns, and using that information to develop a machine or a mechanism that acts and conducts itself as that spirit or what is told or defined by that spirit for that particular group of people, and then participating in warfare with them from a position in which they feel that is unable to defeat. And the identification of this particular type of warfare can be simply by using the other religious formulas that dictate the exorcism of that particular spirit or idea. So if an exorcist does not work for that spirit, then it would suggest that's what's going on. So this again is based off an ignorance of technology that they have been able to do this. The spirits that they discuss are mechanisms, mechanical machines, magnets that move metal, mechanisms, electromagnets that move small particles in the air. They are torches. They are things that can be made and were made by the human being during the time that people wrote and discussed these particular things, but they were discussing something else. So they were talking and referring particularly to technology. This has nothing to do with religion. So there is no possible way, again, that someone would listen to an individual's discussing this particular type of warfare. Now, we do understand that their entire mechanisms that they're using, goals, apparatuses to achieve their goals are simply technological and non-religious. So let's break it down to this and what can be said. The people who have financial capabilities of knowing what this machine are talking about it. They're aiming it at your memories. It's a very well quoted song in a Lil Wayne song. Meaning he's aiming a particular gun or a particular type of electronic weapon at your mind so that you cannot remember. That means at this point in time that these concepts that's been discussed in these religious places are false. They're completely false. If you know anything about Roman history, it's kind of like Roman history, where in ancient Rome, a lot of times you will come to a statue of a particular god or a particular shrine of a particular god or a temple, and that particular god could do certain tricks. If you prayed to this particular god, then if he answered your prayers, his chairs would rise up out of the bottom of the podium. And you could see him, the image of his statue coming up and the doors opening and him coming through. This was just a simple water trick. Simply by putting water through a carved out rock and putting the water above that level, the water, and displacing the water, not above, but displacing the water below and above, the thing was allowed to rise because of displacement. Now, we would say that as a result of these people being lacking that type of education, lacking that type of formal knowledge, and only participating in things such as trades and handiworks. And handiworks. And handiworks. They were being spooked and scared. Just participating in trades and handiworks. That's it. So, if you participate in trade and handiworks, some of these concepts come to your mind 20 to 30 years after participation. 20 to 30 to 40 years after you've worked this one trade, you learn a trick of displacement. 20 to 30, 40 years after you learn this one, you learn after working electricity, you learn a trick of alternate DC currents, and you learn particular tricks on how to fool the book or fool the thing or fool or ways around through particular with the road maps. You learn to be a different routes around the particular roadmap at hand. But given that trick that you learned in 10 to 15 years of working is already written down 20 to 40 years before you started working, one is a little bit more concerned about, in this particular area, about those particular people being able to be the ones that are in the societies that are able to govern over the people and dictate, whether for religious or political reasons, what happens to the people. Because if we can see here, this is a very poor form of dictation. And this is a very poor form of dictation me talking to you right here. But literally, like, this is a very poor form of dictation. So now when you discuss this incident with these individuals, they can then come up and assault you with this particular machine because they don't have the neurological mental structures to stop them. And this is why they participate in this type of behavior. Now they're ready to fight. They've been coming through the bushes. They've been coming through the bushes. They're ready to go. So it's supposed to be a cold, rainy weekend. So we don't know what particular false concept of nature they might blame this on, but we're going to prepare to fight them also. And we're going to prepare to fight them very, 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 very strongly. So we're going to prepare to fight them until they submit to the reality that the problem is not the people, other people, but it is yourself. And your need and desire for the use of this technology that prompts your development. Meaning that the problem is not that intelligent guy down the street on both ends of this highway that's well educated, that you drive every day and talk to him like he's not even a human being. It's the fact that when he thinks and he reads, or when she thinks and she reads, they then send that information to your mind. And then after sending that information to your mind, you then coin that particular piece of information as your own. And after knowing that, you still willingly take it as your own creation or your own idea. So we want to be very sure that before we attempt to go ahead and capture them in their moments of weakness and falsehood. We want to make sure that what we're saying is accurate, can be understood, and is truthful. The problem is the people in these in black communities that make money off of working in trades and different forms of development. And the problem is that they have gathered specific types of muscles in their forearms, in their buttocks, usually not their legs. And these particular muscles are not muscles of healthy people, but muscles of people as if I just curl this one arm, but this other arm over here I never curled it before, so I got a big old arm over here and a little arm over here. I got a big old leg over here and a little old leg over here. I got big old part, I got big old arms and a little old chest. They're not equally balanced people physiologically, because the type of work that they do does not require them to be equally balanced people physiologically. So we want to ensure before we take this drastic route against Mr. Renvaris Shorter for not being able to control himself, against those participants, Mr. Bracy Chess, for not being able to control himself, for him attempting to commit arson on the home, for him blowing up the Comtrend box, for his affiliates or those who support him blowing up the Comtrend box, for the preachers and the imams who walked around and discussed spiritual warfares and knew that there was something in that sky that was causing this, and there is no such thing as a spiritual warfare, because a human being cannot fight a spirit, something he cannot see, touch, feel, or hear. Being that a spiritual warfare is only left for those of the higher degrees in religious concepts, which can see, hear, touch, feel, and see those things because of their innate or higher functioning abilities, we want to make sure that this is what's going on here. That we identify that these people who live, if there's a community full of blacks and there's anyone in the community that is poor and educated, the problem is not the outside world, but the blacks themselves. They have used Booker T. Washington as a form of criminal clout. And what I mean by the mechanisms and the mechanisms and theories and hypothesis of the Booker T. Washington as a form of criminal clout. And that's why blacks are going through the things they're going through today. We want to make sure we identify that's what's going on here. We want to make sure that what's actually going on right now in this particular road, from end to end of this highway, is a defamation of the character of the educated black man, so that they can boost up the character of those they have not educated, because the inability to describe and discuss things without discussing things as spiritual warfare, and say, well, the inability to discuss things such as spiritual warfare as a form of technological advantage in a physical warfare. So let's get to work here, gents, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully this video will make it online. We don't know. But what we do know, at this point in time, Mr. Bracy Chess and all those who participate in that form of thing are driving down the highway. What we do know is that all people who have reached any form of degree of education in this community have been the laughing stock of the communities, and especially if there are older people, are dead. So we do know that, and the only ones left are these particular people associated with this concept of Booker T. Washington on a road, and Shelby Road, where the largest landowner's name is Divinity, and the person who works for him that drives up and down our highway, his name is Booker T. And the other person, the last man named Booker T that lived on the particular highway, was a black entrepreneur who came from an educated family and a war veteran who successfully raised children, crops, farmed, lumber, and several different forms of activities in the area without being associated with anything Booker T. Washington stated. He's now passed, and all affiliates associated with him, even if they were affiliated with Booker T. Washington of some sort, had more money than him, laughed at him, talked about him, and majority of them are now passed also. So we want to make sure that we can identify that what's going on in this area is just simply murder. And it's murder because they lack the ability to understand that there's no such thing as spiritual warfare. This is not religion. This is physical warfare. And that majority of jobs held by 50-year-old men at high positions in the community are still jobs for 16 to 15-year-old children. So nothing's changed in the black communities around the world. Staticness. So we want to ensure that that's why money is funded through them from particular organizations. And that's why money is funded, large sums of money are funded to black criminals faster and at a quicker rate than it is to other blacks in general. And that's why they're attacking this particular group of people, because they're getting funded to do such. And they're not stating that this is what they're doing, but this is actually what's taking place. This is actually what they do. We're going to go here. We're going to dry these several forms of linen here. They got pretty wet. We're going to let the thermal heated sleeping bag dry. We thermal proofed our tent here with several emergency blankets to kind of keep the heat in. Once that kind of dries, that should keep the heat in. Put a little aluminum foil in it for some thermal protection, if you can kind of see here. I haven't been in there since I got in there. I was kind of let it dry, but we kind of aired it out. Definitely looks like urine to me, but a little dirt, a little water, a little urine. So I would say in areas where I would say the rule of thumb now is where it looks like something could be natural, it's probably something that is natural being put in the area, but not caused by the natural things in the area, such as human or man-made causes. So we were going to make sure that we can identify that all things that took place today were man-made. The COM trend box is down, so we don't know when we're going to get this on the internet. But we do know that the COM trend box is down. And we do know that the only thing that is free for this particular group of people and myself is that particular mechanism that they describe in churches and around the world as spiritual warfare.